that tree, brother?
I'll take it.
Okay, all right, sure will.
Don't be late for everything. After some things. Yeah. Every once in a while. Let's borrow one bit. I got all that today, try to see same thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you saying she's sitting?
Oh my gosh, I did not bring, I had all that other to bring and I cut back it. I apologize, Bella.
Oh, that's all right.
Ooh, I had 3 armloads.
So what was the final on that? Did we have to get on package?
No.
I never read the final decision on that.
No, just the application.
See, that's
The important document.
that is. It's gonna be right there in front of you.
Oh, okay.
We get to.
You look around home and then you don't see them right there, it's like we all need to see together.
Oh.
All this important.
I meant to bring mine.
How about you?
But.
I've been on control. If you need
I've been to the
help, I'll show you on the website how to get to them if you want to look at them on the computer or a tablet.
You good?
Don't know.
I can put a speed link on there where you can just click it and it'll take you to this page that's up here on the TV now.
Oh, yeah.
And then
first, because
you can just
stressed out.
click the one and it'll have the exact same thing.
Oh.
The young.
No, I mean, I don't have to use my hotspot in here.
If you want it in here, I'll give you the passcode.
How long you stay?
That's what just.
I don't see it. I could have brought my.
Carry
I could have it. So as long as I can look at it at home and there's something special I can look at right here.
Good evening.
Wow, what do we?
I'm not here to cause trouble, I promise. You really don't call the law. Ain't far to come. Mike's running late, so we're having to wait.
He's still billing though.
Actually, wait.
Oh, yeah, he's on the clock.
He's on.
Yes, she did.
I know, that's why.
Smith, are you?
I'm phenomenal. Good to see you, sir.
You remember that?
Be around.
Our office is in the disarray and they work in their normal
Chris,
spot.
you wake up in the evenings every day, you got a lot to be thankful for today.
Beaches.
No, but
You must not have done.
no. You have more ailments than I can check your sick, sir.
Yeah, the ball, we talked about, we got a little ball.
You ought to see that needle for the stomach shot. An inch and a half long, you have to fit it 1 inch in.
So you did know it, just didn't know you.
Yeah,
We got more than one.
It's not
There's one of them
Has that started?
started Monday.
You know what that was at?
You enjoying it?
I only had to do it once so far. Sunday night, I'll have to do it again.
Oh,
That's good. Over there by, where the guy had the thing, he wanted to sell his house. His house is almost on the road, and then the other side.
Well, no, it's just.
Oh, I can't see exactly where it's at.
Trying to,
But if you come out now, we got
we just they go up your nose, cut off three sinuses and board.
And on the right, you can see it with that.
Right. Pituitary gland to,
But the one
increase
you were talking about earlier,
signals
he
from
was
the brain.
doing that for the field.
with a shot to avert that, so we're gonna do 3 months on that, so that. Do another, see if we need to do 3 months.
Yes, sir.
He's not here, but I mean,
right, I've,
but we're good to go. Okay. It is actually 6:05, so it's time for us to, get started. So, as usual, I'll ask each and every one of you to stand and join me with the word of prayer. Come God, our Father, once again, that we're bow in our presence. Thanking Thee for life, health, and strength. Thanking Thee for all the good and perfect things that Thou hast allowed for us. Our Father, we ask You to bless each and every one sound of my voice, but not ones on the sound of my voice, but each and every one in this entire world. And Father, we will be so careful to give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. First of all, let me welcome each and every one of you here to our business meeting for the planning and zoning. I do have one announcement before we get started. One of our members, Bruce Gandy, will not be here tonight. His brother passed away, I think on Friday, and he's got family coming in and all that's going on. So he called me and informed me that he could not be here tonight, or he would miss this meeting. So the services will be Thursday at 2 o'clock at the funeral home down here at Les Lord and Stevens. I think it's 2 o'clock on Thursday. Okay. Call this meeting to order, and the first thing I would like to do is, I guess, let the board members introduce themselves in the district or the area that they represent.
Okay, so the enforcement elected by the P and Z.
Jeff Bradley, District 1.
Canola Scott, the chair of the planning and zoning. I was appointed by the chairman of the county commissioners.
Lee Mitchell, District 2.
And William Smith, District 4.
Tracy Patrick, zoning administrator.
All right, with that, we'll get into our business. First of all, we need to approve the minutes for January 3rd, our regular business meeting, and the minutes of January 17th, our public hearing meeting. I think most of you got it in your package, or you got it ahead of time, but it was sent to you by email. So I will entertain a motion to approve one or both of the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve.
My second.
Ken's got a motion. Ken, and second by William to approve the minutes for January 3rd, 2023 regular business meeting, and the minutes of January 17th, 2023 public hearing meetings. Any discussion? If not, Cynthia?
Yes.
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 These minutes are approved. So we don't have any old business, but I would like to, I went before the Board of Commissioners last night with our public hearing for all of the rezone requests that we had. All of them were approved as we had recommended. 8 of them was 5-0. The one about the junkyard or rezoning into an industrial was a 3-2 vote. So this was not approved. So with that, Ms. Tracy, we'll go what we're here tonight for.
Yes, sir. The first order for the new business is the final plat review for Spratly Mill subdivision, Phase 5, Jay Pridgeon. I would like to say that Jay contacted me yesterday, and he's had a death in the immediate family, and he had to drive to, I believe it was Birmingham, or Bainbridge.
Bainbridge.
Somewhere very.
Started with a B.
That's right, I was getting there, and so he wasn't able to attend, his
That's right.
funeral was tonight, but he has sent Mr.
Dan
Danny
Pridgeon.
Pridgeon to be his applicant for tonight, but it is the final plat review for Spratly Mill subdivision, and it contains 11 to 12 lots and is located on map 31, parcel 153 on Spratly Mill Road. The preliminary plat was approved with no conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission on June 5th, 2018, and by the Board of Commissioners on July 2nd, 2018.
Okay, Mr. Pritchett, you wanna come and talk to us and tell us what you want or need?
Well, as I understand, and again, this was on short notice with the events that took place, this is not something that I customarily do. Jay normally comes before your panel and the board requesting for these approvals. My conversation with him, he had indicated that he has done and provided everything that has been requested. All of the signatures, I believe, has been placed on that final plat, minus your approval. And as I understand from Jay, this was just the last part of the process. I believe all of your questions have already been answered. The processes have been completed. But if there's anything that remains, please ask me. But at my conversation with him, he had felt that this would just be basically the process being finished.
All right.
But I'll be glad to answer any questions if I can.
Okay. And before we do that, the staff of the planning and zoning, are there any comments, questions, or anything that we need to be concerned about?
There is not any to my knowledge, and I hope you got the covenants that I sent out today and have printed for you. Jay sent those in yesterday. That was the only missing document that we were in need of. Barry Lord actually came in to do the plat, and he is a very good surveyor and knows the rules, and I feel like, Christopher and I both feel like that this is legit, and he's got all the approvals that's needed.
We verified all the bonds that were in place were still in place as well, that they hadn't lapsed or anything of that nature.
Okay. Does any member of the board have any any questions for Mr. Pritchett, or you have any concerns with the material that you've received?
This may be a question more for Tracy. Probably I just don't know how it's interpreted. When section 9.0 of the subdivision reg says that the developer has 1 year after the preliminary plat to submit a final plat, does that literally mean 1 year? I mean,
Well, I'm going to have to check more on that, but he was questioning the 1 year rule to have a final plat done after a preliminary, and
This predates that. When it went in, and we've already went through the final plat phase before, we were here more than 2 years ago, so it's been ongoing. And correct me if I used the wrong legal jargon, but it's ongoing and it falls under the president. So when it was the president.
Yeah, it's governed by the rules in place then, but actually I thought that was for if there's a rezone of an undefined parcel, then the plat has to be recorded within a year. But it's very common for it to take more than a year to get from preliminary to final, because all the infrastructure has to be in. I don't think there's a 1 year requirement for that, or a timing requirement at all for that.
And may I say, these were very unusual times because of the pandemic, the shortages that were in place globally, things that typically we could bring in 6 months was taking 12 and 18 months in order to get in to finish the development. So these last 2 or 3 years has just been unprecedented in so many different ways.
I could have read it wrong. I just know in 9.0 and if the preliminary plat came in 2018, then
It predates
Before the year.
And that's the reason we went back to verify all the bonds were in place for that point in time, that it met the ordinance and the regulations at the time of its adoption. Or
Any other questions?
definitely.
Any other questions or comments on this particular one? Are you asking us to vote on this tonight, or are you asking us to just to?
Yes.
It's the board's pleasure.
Since I would recommend it, since doesn't seem to be a problem, And we're trying to move as much of this stuff as through as quickly as possible. So we go ahead and, vote to send it on to the, Board of Commissioners for their, approval. Because that's good with the board.
I just, I do have a question, and I guess if we're gonna look at, I know we went out and viewed this, and it was locked up before it went to the VOC last time. How much was changed from what we reviewed, forwarded on, and then going to the final plat here, as far as, I mean, I know the number of lots, but was there any other substantial changes that were made?
That's-
Okay.
There was, if I remember right, there was a concern about some drainage being made, or prisons bringing it into, code standards as far as the drainage and not puddling, and they did that. And that was the only outstanding, thing from the conversation, or subject material from that conversation. So everything that we asked, required of them, they,
So this is the Spratton Mill, right?
yes, not the one next to Brush Creek.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, I know the one next to, I know what Ms. Fish talking about. I can remember the one that Brush Creek being locked up, but I can't remember when the
Okay,
Spratton
yeah,
Mill.
I'm crossing my wires here, that's perfect, okay. All
But
right.
yeah, I think it got brought up when we were talking about Brush Creek because of the water drainage.
Yeah.
At Stradlin 5, and then they brought that, up to snuff.
Correct, I think we're talking about two different,
Yeah.
two
Okay.
two different ones. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You guys wanna vote on this one tonight and send it on? I don't see any reason to delay.
Okay.
Vote open for motion?
So I make a motion that we, I'm sorry. I make a motion that it be approved as is.
Motion by Cynthia?
Second.
So motion and second that the, final plat be approved by the, P and Z and sent on to the commissioners for their approval. Any questions or any comments? If not, Kenneth?
Yes.
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 Chris, there to go, you will, this will come before the Board of Commissioners and, they'll,
Christina had asked me when to put it on there, and I said it would depend on tonight. So we'll probably be looking at the end of the month, or at the latest, the first of the next month.
It depends on the advertising requirements. If they've already sent it in before the end of the month of February, with it being a short month, or whether it be the first hearing.
March.
In March.
Mhm.
Very good, first hearing in March, very good.
I can get that, clarified and let you know.
If you would, please,
Mhm.
very good.
All right, moving on to.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
We greatly appreciate your help.
All right, move on to number 2, discussion on zoning applications for February 21st, 2023, public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. First up, is Philip Smith, and he actually has 2 applications. One is requesting a conditional use to bring his existing non-conforming private airstrip into compliance with current zoning regulations. The property is located at 727 Hannah Creek Church Road in Royston on map 75, parcel 6 in District 4. Now, in talking with Mr. Smith, he has had this outfit up and running since 2017, and I don't know if you recall or not, you probably do, when we had the dog kennel situation in Hannah Creek. He wanted to, because Mr. Smith retaliated, objected to the kennel, he then in turn announced that he had an illegal airstrip. Mr. Smith was unaware of this, and he said as soon as he found this out, he has not flown the plane since May of 22. He said as soon as he found out he wasn't within our ordinances, he stopped flying. It's basically an unpaid hay field. It's just for leisure and hobby only. He said at most, he may fly one time a week, but usually it's just a monthly thing. And he did say he has never received complaints from any neighbors. And then I'll go ahead and announce the second one, and then we do have a PowerPoint that he has to be played. But the second part is requesting a variance for the non-conforming private strip because it cannot meet the 100-foot setback from one dwelling. All the dwellings around him, he can meet it, but for one, he has a 99-foot deficit. And there's another deficit at one point of the road. It's also required to be 1,000 feet. And unfortunately, this one's a big one. He has an 850-foot deficit. And he, as you say, I've presented all the materials that he gave me, and I also have the PowerPoint, and he is in attendance tonight, so, I don't know if he can speak tonight.
Sure.
He's welcome to come
We
up.
need all the information we can get.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I would like to make sure that I answer every single question we have. And while we're pulling that PowerPoint up, thank you. It's going to be, we're going to go into a fair amount of detail, but I'd like to go through all the detail tonight so we can move through the public hearing without grinding over every last bit and wasting everybody else's time. And while that's coming up, before I start, that's it right
Is that
there.
what you want to start with? I didn't know
Yes, sir.
you wanted to support that.
That's it. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody knows how much I appreciate the world's best zoning administrator, because without Ms. Tracy, we would all be in deep water.
Oh, thank you.
And this is me, so let's get started. The first thing you all need to do is obviously throw this out of hand, because I only realized this morning it's not a special use permit, it's a conditional use permit. And I'm so blinders on getting it together that I missed that. I will change that for the public hearing. That's a typo. This is me, I'm Phil Smith, 727 Hannah Creek Church Road. That's in the Harrison community, up on the other side of the river. We'll look at the maps in a minute. I have been designated as a private airstrip by the FAA. That's all part of this entire process. I'll get to that in just a few minutes. I did get a license. I'm licensed by the FAA to fly this thing. This is not a lawnmower underneath a kite. This is really, it's a real airplane. And I'm asking for this conditional use permit, and I'm going to go over the places where I'm short on that 1,000-foot. So if we could go ahead to the next slide, please.
Next one after this.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is good. I'm sorry, that was already the one I wanted to be on. To start, and for the record, first of all, I want to apologize to my county and to my neighbors for having been flying for those few years without knowing that I needed a conditional use permit. I just didn't know it. Honestly, I don't sit around in the evenings and read zoning ordinances. I didn't know, and I don't know how anybody would know that. Just no average citizen without some way of saying, you want to do this, you really ought to ask first. Like Ms. Tracy said, as soon as I found out, I stopped. I wanted to show good faith that I want to adhere to the letter of the law as well as the spirit of the law. And it was actually April 28. I went and looked at my logs today, and it was April 28 was the last time I flew. So I started the entire process. What do I need to do? First thing was the FAA permit, and that took all of last summer. I didn't get the final word from them until December of this year. So that's where we're at. Next slide, please. So the conditional use permit in A1, section 7128, a private airstrip is listed as one of the conditional uses as long as we adhere to the information in section 918, which we're going to go to next. These are the conditions. Conditional use in A1. By the way, I wanted to mention I was told quite a while ago that conditional use does not follow the land, it follows the owner. If somebody else buys this property, they're not allowed to use it as a private airstrip. They would have to reapply and then give them permission again. So this has got nothing to do with my land value. I'm not trying to pump it up and sell it as an amusement park or something like that. It will do nothing for my.
One second, is that true? That it runs with the land once?
It runs.
Yeah, it's its own a zoning decision that runs with the land.
Just
I'm
like
not
the
sure
kennel
where that
next to it.
Okay, this is all new information, thank you very much. This is precisely why I'm here, to find out what I don't know. Okay. It still stands, I'm not trying to put up a carnival, okay? When you get to the restrictions in the very end, I'm not trying to put up something where the people come in and out. I don't want anybody else to try to fly into my land, I don't want the liability. I don't, okay, this is just for me. So it must be 50 acres or greater in A1, I am A1, I've got 82 acres right now. I've had that since 1988. Site plan, we're gonna go over that in detail, you already saw a glimpse of that. Landing takeoff zones, surrounding land uses, everything else is on there that we need to look at. We'll go through them in close detail in just a little bit. The one that's got me stuck is 918.3, no closer than 1,000 feet from any residence other than that of the applicant owner. And this is where down to the kennel, it's 901 feet. The distances, I measured them all on the Q Public website, our Q Public website. I didn't get a surveyor in there or anything like that. But it's clearly not 1,000 feet, it's 901 according to that. And that's what I am asking the variance for. The way I was reading this, and I was obviously mistaken, is that I didn't know I needed to be 1,000 feet away from the road. And I may be completely mistaken on that, that would be new. Moving on to 18.4, FAA application. I think you have copies of this in your packet, and we're going to go over that next. Actually, no more than 3 aircraft shall be used. We don't need to worry about that. I can barely afford what I've got. 2 engines, we don't need to worry about that. That's for people who are rich. It's not many. 6 passengers, no need to worry about that. No helicopters, sorry. No jets. They're not going to send me after any weather balloons. We don't have any high-power equipment in there. It's a small thing. It's a little 65 horsepower engine. Private use, definitely. No aviation events. Like I said, I don't want anybody else on my property. I don't even know anybody else who owns an airplane that can get in and out of there. So that's kind of a non-issue. And daytime takeoff and landing is also a given because my license, my sport license, explicitly restricts me to daytime use. I don't want to fly at night. I'm scared of flying at night. If you have an engine out where you land, if you can't even see the ground, it's not going to happen. So I've got everything on here covered except that 1,000 foot. So that's what I want to make sure that we focus on this evening. Thank you. Next.
Well, before you do the first,
Sir.
you mentioned something about, you talked about the 1,000 feet, but you mentioned something else.
Yes, one is the other dwelling, and then one is one point of the road. You can meet setbacks on all of the road except for one point, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where is the road setback requirement? I'm not seeing it there.
We can go back, it's, B, 9.18.2B.
So that says the site plan shall include the following information, and B is the surrounding land uses within 1,000 feet. But that's not a setback.
All right, I'm sorry,
I think it's referring, or that would be probably referring to in your site plan, include everything within 1,000 feet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Wanted to make sure.
And then the dwelling is the one down under it.
Right, I see that one.
Okay,
But the road shouldn't.
So I'm trying to figure out, is there 2 problems or just one? The
okay.
one is 1,000 feet
Well,
from
that's
the
great.
residence. Is there another problem? Oh.
I'm saying no.
Okay. Well,
Where it says areas where aircraft are to be operated, from here is a central point where the 2 runways cross to those. That doesn't, it's not supposed to be at the end of the runway or anything like that. It's
The reason I use that is because that's a detail of the FAA application. They say, where's the airport, what are you referencing to? It's the center of the operations, and if there are 2 runways, it's where they intersect. And that is the part that they use in their official GPS global, and everything like that. That's why that's there. And honestly, I will admit, I've never, ever been through this process before. I made the best guesses I could and moved forward. And there's quite possible that I made a mistake here or there somewhere or another, so let's discover them and get them straightened out.
Yeah, just, because I'm not familiar with the plane, some plane. Is it a crop plane?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, and that is, we're going to actually go over that. That's one of the restrictions on my license as well. No furtherance of the business, nothing for hire. I can't tow any banners, nothing like that. This is purely Purely for sport, purely for enjoyment.
So you're gonna go in the type of plane you have later?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I won't ask you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And these are exactly the kind of questions I want to answer.
No.
And that's my hay farm. This is my last June cutting, obviously kind of thin. This is from just inside my front gate, looking down towards my buildings. And as you can see, first of all, that, I've got a lot of terrain on here, and this is probably the flattest land I have. It's still pretty slopey. And where if you don't mind, I'd like to use a laser pointer.
To us,
This is my driveway coming down here on the left, as you all are looking at that. And then across the top, and then the driveway goes around the base of this line of trees and goes down to the house. Top of this hill is where I land. It's about 900 feet. I can very easily get into that. I landed about 300 feet. That's one of the reasons why I chose the plane I have. It's because it can get in there. It's called a short takeoff and landing airplane. But I've got exactly 1 square yard of flat area on that, and it's right in the dead center in the top. Everything else is already sloping away. I'll move it 10 feet down on either side, get it any farther away from anything, anybody. Then I'm starting to take off on the slope literally like this, and it's not safe. So I'm doing the best I can with what I got. If the county decides that it's not good enough, I need to not operate there, then I will not operate there anymore ever. But this is what I do have, and this is what the land looks like. Next, please, sir. So we're saying the sign was out. It's out there right now. Actually, it's got the two big signs for this set of meetings stapled to it out at my front gate. I would like to encourage you all, please come out. I'm a computer programmer. I work from home right now. The base office is in New York City. I'm not going to come to New York City. I work from home every day. Come out, call my number. I'll let you in. We'll walk the place, put your feet on the ground. You can just see what I have to deal with. Got nothing to hide. I would like for you to come out. Please. Why am I doing this? I'm sure you've all seen this before. I don't want to read the whole thing, but those last 3 lines are what has inspired me since I saw this when I was probably in grade school, especially the last to put out my hand and touch the face of God. That's why I fly. I'm just up a couple thousand feet. I'm only in beautiful, pretty, calm weather. The sun is shining. It's quiet. There's no rain around. I'm just flying along. Man, this is a beautiful land around here. I just get up off the surface a little bit and just look at it. That's all I'm doing. That's all I want to do for 45 minutes or so. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. Please. Yes, sir. So what are we doing here? What's going on? As I said, I've got a sport pilot license from Lanier Flight Academy up in Gainesville. That was 2.5 years ago. That sport pilot license is, just so you know, most people who are flying their own airplanes probably have a private pilot's license, or they have additional certifications after that. Private pilot lets you get into a Cessna 172, you can fly at night. You can't fly IFR, which means in the clouds, where you can't see where you're going, but you can fly at night, and you can fly to tower airports, things like that. Sport pilot is basically a full step down from that. I'm only allowed to fly day, VFR day, visual flight rules, which means it's got to be clear. You've got to be able to see what's going on. It have to be inside the ground. So if there's a cloud deck, I cannot fly over it. Even if it's local, I cannot fly. It must be inside of the ground, away from the clouds, away from everybody else. Weight limit of 1,320 pounds, I think, on the airplanes I can fly. So small airplanes. It's really kind of a training wheels pilot's license is all it is. That's all I want. Because all I want to do is go off on a Saturday morning and just look at the beautiful land for 45 minutes. And then I come back down and I park it, and then I get back in to worry about my job and everything else that's bothering me in the world. So for those 45 minutes, I can relax, and that's what I'm doing. I built my own plane. We can go into that if we need to. It's registered in 2020, certified by one of the best A&P inspectors in the entire state. Fly up the farm just to maintain proficiency and enjoy the flight. So if it's all that much fun, why don't I hang it somewhere in a hangar? And that is a real kicker right now. There is nowhere else. There's a nationwide shortage of hangars. It's been 3-4 years. We've got people waiting in some places for 7, 8, 9 years to park their airplane inside a hangar, and rain on an airplane rots it and corrodes it real bad. 18A, that's the airport up in Cannon. They haven't even started building yet. They could dig some dirt out and build some more hangars, but they're not doing it. There's a 2-year waiting list up there. Jackson County, talked to him, he's already building some, and they're already taken up because the big guys with the $1 million airplanes out of Gainesville are moving to Commerce because they're getting away from the really heavy rents that are coming up in Gainesville. So they can't get into Commerce. Elberton, there is a choice. He's got 2 plots left on a row of hangars that are on the far, far end of the field. The deal is that you lease a 50 by 50 foot plot from the city, probably a long-term lease, I don't know exactly what the term is. Then you build your own hangar out of your own pocket, and then you own the building that's sitting on the lease. You can lease out your building, you can sell it, it's real property that you own, but it's sitting on their dirt. I don't know what happens when their lease expires, if they take it or if you're allowed to pick up you're going to take it away, I don't know. It's not a viable option. I've got no business building a building like that, and it's a long ways away, so it doesn't work. Athens is off the table completely because my license does not allow me to fly into towered airports. And Athens is a towered airport, and it's one of the serious restrictions on my sport pilot license. So I need to stay out here in the country. What I would love to say is Madison County Public Airport has got hangar space, and I can rent it next week. Yeah. No, it's wink, wink. Madison County next week. Madison County's probably not ever going to have an airport. So my options are to either fly at my own place and keep my own property on my own property, or else sell it and be very, very sad for the rest of my life and go back to going fishing. So that's what's going on. Next, please, sir. Yes, sir. Screenshot of one of my favorite flights. As a matter of fact, this was my last flight, April 28, 2022. Leave out of the farm. The farm is the blue dot right there. The point is that I punch out and get away immediately, quickly. There's a big high-tension power line that goes through the Harrison community, kind of goes near where that radio tower is by the Christmas tree farm, and it goes right up to the dam at Lake Hartwell. I don't know where the power goes to, but usually jump out and follow the power line. Just fly about 2,000 feet off the ground, go up there, and then I'm looking at the lake, and then what I like to do is turn after I get up there, and this is where I turn here, and I fly up over the very edge of the lake, and it's peaceful and quiet, there's nobody else around, and on a Sunday morning, and the sun is still glinting, maybe the water's rippling a little bit, and maybe there's a boat or two down there, so I'm fishing. I'm looking to see if the stripers are chasing bait balls up to the surface, just because I just want to see if the fish are biting or not. So I go a little ways, and then I get turned around and come back home, follow the power line back down, and then I will get out to my downwind leg, come in, downwind leg, make my turn, come in, and slam bucket on my runway. The very serious point here is I don't buzz around the farm like a little gnat, like a little dragonfly. I'm not making noise. I'm not flying low, buzzing the neighbors or anything. I get in and I get out. I get out and I get away from the farm and get back in. I'm very, very conscious about not being obnoxious to my neighbors. So that's my favorite flight. Next, please, sir.
And if I could interject,
Yes, ma'am.
we had to send out notices to the adjoining property owners,
Yes, ma'am.
and I've not heard a single complaint. I've not received any calls.
Thank you. That's brand new news to me, and that's also encouraging. Thank you.
Also to support you, in the flight plans that he logs, the only time he's allowed to drop below 400 foot is in your landing process and take that off. So it's uncontrolled airspace. Sorry.
It's just a learning experience all the way along. Let's keep going.
There's only 3 pilots employed by the county. They're with the sheriff's department, and I'm not.
Now that there's an official private strip up there and they need to make an emergency landing, it's available if you want to pass that along to them. Let's go through a couple of maps here. These are all from Q Public again. I'm going to zoom in first of all, Madison County. Here I am in the upper right corner, a little blue dot. Next slide, please. We're zooming in a little bit closer. Here's Royston. This is the Harrison community down here. There's my property. Next one in is going to start showing some of the adjacent parcels. One thing I want to notice here is how much of the land around there is heavily forested. This is not the wide open land over near Paoli or anything like that, where there's lots and lots of open dirt and flat land. It's very hilly. You may be able to see, this is the Broad River. Come over here, there's the North Fork and Hudson. North Fork and Hudson. And then Royston is just off to the upper right. So if we can go in one more, here's my property. This is Q Public. The red line is Q Public lines. You will see how much of my land is open, and you'll see how much of it's forested. deliberately reforested a fair bit of it. The stuff that's too steep, it's not good soils. The only thing that really grows there is pine trees, so that's what's on it right now. And it looks like I could just move it over, but the next slide will show us that I cannot. This is extremely steep land. Here's my property here, here's the road, my property is like this. That pond there is on the neighbor's property. Ms. Tracy, I'm sorry, that was coming in your face.
Oh, no, it's okay.
And I go all the way up to this next ridge over here. This is my far property line. I've got 170 feet of elevation from my front gate down to the bottom. It's really steep. There's very little flat land, and I'm trying to use the best I can with what I've got. So that's why I'm limited to where the runway can physically be. And that's why the hay fields are where they are, because the steep stuff, I don't dare plow steep slopes. It's just going to wash away. So here's our first look at the site plan. I think we're going to have about 3 looks at this. What I would like to focus on, let's start at the very center. The dotted line is my driveway, comes in from the road, goes to my shop, and then down to my house. My hay barn, my hangar, and my shop are right there in the center, right close to where the road is. This land over here, it belongs to Brown Estate. It's cattle land. This land over here belongs to Bud Freeman. Built the middle of his house in 1985 on that property. This property down here along the creek, the blue area that you see is the floodplain for Hannah Creek. Originally, that 50 acres down there goes from my property all the way to the creek. Was part of my property. It was 138 acres. Like 2 weeks before I bought it back in 1988, Mr. Myers said to whoever owned it, I want 50 acres down there on the bottom because I want to run cattle. So they just sliced it off. That's why that line is there. This property now with double wides on it, with 5 trailers on it, is now divided into 4 parcels, but the entire 50-acre piece is for sale right now. I actually made them an offer on it, a bona fide market offer on them in December. They turned me down. They're being kind of greedy with what they want, especially with the condition of the trailers. 3 of them are derelict. 2 of them look like they're occupied. They're running the place as a hunt club. I walked it very carefully and thoroughly with the real estate agent, and there's nobody living down there right now. And I don't know why they're selling and getting rid of it. I don't know what's going on. There's remains of some kind of party pavilion down there. It looks like some kind of a bar or something like that. It's all, the infrastructure is falling apart. Keeping on to the very top of the picture, you see in purple the power line. That was one of the things that needs to be on the site plan. And obviously the wind was blowing when I hand drew that in there. Sorry about it's crooked, but that's the way the purple line goes. There's the kennel. There's the one where I have 901 feet. This is where I need variance here. The other 2 neighbors to the upper right, neighbor, honestly, I don't even know who those people are. They've been there for, I don't know, 5, 10 years, something like that. I don't even know how long. I've never met them, ever. We keep to ourselves.
Is that showing me that you're 150 feet from the Hannah Creek Road?
The very top of
Right
this
there.
runway is 100 feet from the road, yes, ma'am.
150.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't require that.
That's the question I was asking.
It was just supposed to be on the site plan, just to show within 1,000 feet of special areas.
Oh.
And I misinterpreted it and thought that it was a setback.
Oh,
My apologies.
And within 1,000 foot of, we'll just see what the FAA calls the center of the runway, he has to show anything that the infrastructure, road, power line, houses, just within 1,000 feet, which he's done.
Oh, my question will be later.
Okay. Just for what it's worth, there's a cell phone tower in the area. It's like due south of this map, about 3/4 of a mile, perhaps a mile. I use it as I call it my cell tower. When I'm coming back in, I'm looking for exactly where my place is. And there's the big power line that goes next to it. Those are both about a mile away south from me. Across the street, I'm sorry, if we could back up. Across the street, there's a trailer over there. It's not occupied. That belongs to the Brown Estate. Power has been off there for at least 2.5 years is when I first noticed that the street light was off. Coming up probably closer on 3. It's not occupied. He's been in there this winter processing firewood. He was over there this evening cut firewood up and haul it out, but it hasn't been occupied for quite some time. And then on the far lower right, there's Anna Creek Church, and they're well off the property. One thing I'll mention now is that on Sundays, I look to see if I'm gonna try to fly on a Sunday morning and go over there and look and see if the church is in service. If it is, I'm on the ground. I'm just not gonna be rude to them for any reason whatsoever. Now, if we could go possibly to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
The next piece of the requirements was the FAA determination. This is a summary of it. The FAA said, yes, go forward. They had a chance to look at it for 4 months, basically making sure it wasn't interfering with any existing airspace. It does not. They are good to go. There's another 2.5 pages of boilerplate construction, nothing. I'm not constructing anything. I'm not putting any lights, no rotating beacon, painting the ground, nothing like that. It's my hay field, and I need to get hay off it. So, thank you. This is part of the airport master record, and when I signed it, one thing I did put here on purpose was, please do not chart the strip, because they had an option of saying that, because I don't want it on the chart. I don't want people just popping in. Next, please, sir. And in spite of the fact that I was about as clear as I could be, they put it on the chart. That's the current chart, so there I am. That's it. Apparently the FAA knows a lot more than the rest of us, but anyway, that's the chart. Just for reference, here's Athens down here in the lower left. Commerce is away over on the right, on the left, far left. Elberton, lower right. Royston is north of me, above me, and then Cannon from there. As far as I've ever flown is Commerce and Elberton, and I've flown about up to this area about here. This is, I think, that entire picture right there. I've flown, basically, this is my area of operations, and that's as far as I go. That's as far as I want to go somewhere. I don't fly the airplane because I can drive there faster because this thing is so slow. Okay.
Madison County's missing on it.
Sir?
Madison County's missing.
They don't always chart everything. They don't even have Danielsville labeled with you. And that is because they have an actual rule that says that the map is too cluttered. They don't put some things on it. They have to show that there is a city there, but they don't necessarily have to show exactly which one. That's why that's not there. Isla is listed. Commerce is listed, but Danielsville is not because the map is cluttered. And these aviation maps are cluttered. These are intense.
If I remember right, all the lines with the circle through it have a landing strip of over 1,500 feet, so they can accommodate most personal aircraft.
We are lucky that we have somebody who knows this stuff. So let's have another look at the site plan, and this is where I want to, before I even go any further, if I want to ask her any questions.
Okay, of course. Go ahead.
Okay, first, I want you to first understand, sounds like it's therapy, this flying for you, something that, because you're.
That's the word I'm looking for, that's it, yes.
You have a very stressful job, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, but, me, I'm sitting here, not for you, but also the county, the people in the county, so I just have some questions, so don't take my questions personal.
Please.
But I'm thinking of you and the county.
Yes, ma'am.
My first question is, how much traffic is on that Hannah Creek Church Road? Is that a very important?
Not much.
I mean, does it have a lot of traffic, or is that just a country road?
Actually, there's
Okay.
there's a little bit more now because the 281, the Wildcat Bridge is closed.
Right.
And if you want to get from that area in the Harrison community down to Danielsville, you have to go out that way and come down 29 Highway.
Okay.
So but it can be anywhere from a car every 5 minutes to a car every hour.
Okay,
It's
so
really
the
not.
traffic doesn't.
Very little.
Okay.
I live in the area.
Oh.
Very little.
Okay.
When they open that bridge back up, hopefully it'll drop down
Mhm.
again because of the roads and the shoulders.
Okay.
I don't need that wear.
I'm ready for the bridge to open up because it'll make it quicker for me to get here.
July
My
4th.
next question is, I know, it sounds like it's very narrow margins for that landing. And I know you're probably excellent, pilot.
But if we assume that I'm not, then your concern is?
My concern is, you only have that, you have very small margins. I know you have a lot of terrain, so if something happens, you're gonna go into those trees. Hopefully nothing happens, but I'm just saying, you just have a very narrow margin for any error. And you didn't show us your plane, so we don't know what the plane looks like.
I've I've got a picture at the very
Oh,
end.
okay. And, so I don't know exactly what I'm looking at as plane wise, but you know, planes, I'm just saying, there's always, they're a danger. So I'm just saying, you know, it's very narrow margins. And then you have not the FAA, and I know you were clear by them, they don't require you to have any, like, you said you go by the tower of the church for your landing. They don't require you to have anything else?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh,
At
okay.
least 1,000 feet away from anything that's not.
No, I mean, any,
Lights, we talking about lights.
yeah, lights or any, markers or anything.
Amen. No, that's
Cause
right.
you can't fly at night.
I know you can't fly at night, but I mean, still, you can miss
They probably read balls or something on the power line, right? You take
There
out.
are not.
no, that's what I'm saying. That's what we were talking about the last, that other one, that
You know, I
they
did-
had red balls on the power. Okay.
There are a set of those, I mean, at the Harrison Volunteer Fire Department, that's a helicopter landing place. And it's a very tightly enclosed parking lot. And they've got to have them when they're that tight so they can see those and they can see where they're putting it down. But for me, I'm so wide open and the power lines along the street are so low that it's absolutely no issue.
So that's the only place on your land, I know you said that, is you can put this.
Yes, ma'am, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, that's all.
They also don't marker lights on private strips, so as
Oh.
not to illuminate them, because the planes that are flying, that are looking for the
Looking for Athens and end up in Hannah Creek.
Athens, they don't all sit on that exactly, and then if you were to light it up, say like Cannon or, Broad River, people would think, okay, I have 1,500 feet of landing space, and instead of landing I'm assuming you've got a high torque, low drag, we call them quick mollies, pop up and go.
It's similar to that, it's low inertia, high drag.
So, the planes that are landing on these other landing strips need at least 1,500 feet, and that's why if you go down past Rail, Washington, Wilkes County, or down around Thompson, even right there from the road, the lights are going 24/7, so any plane in distress can land there. His lot isn't designed for a plane in distress, so they don't require it to be lit.
Okay, so you just answered another question I had, because you said FAA had, what did they do? They chartered you as an airfield, right?
Yes, ma'am, private restricted, yes, ma'am.
So if there was an emergency, they would recommend your land as a,
If somebody was on the horn with, say, air traffic control out of Athens, and they gave them their identification numbers, which I'm assuming you run identification even on a single engine
Oh, yes,
high drag.
yes.
So when they identify it, it rolls up kind of like running a plate on a car. And if a 747 jet's coming in, they say, you can land at Athens, but you better not go to Cannon. You know, they're not gonna recommend them to land there. They'd rather have them land on 29 in case of an emergency.
This is exactly the kind of thing we need to know, because this is a very unusual request.
yeah,
for
that's
this
why
facility. Yes,
you gotta take everything into consideration.
absolutely, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Which runway do you use most?
The long one. I never take off to the east, towards that trailer, towards the church, because the land at the road is the highest, and it slopes down into my place, and it's seen, when fog is rolling in there with an east wind, there's a rotor that forms like this going down towards my well. And that's as dangerous as you can possibly get. I just don't take off in that direction at all. Typically, I'll take off where the 150-foot sign is, or sign is posted there, and then I will be off by the time I'm well before I meet the other runway. And that's launching me into a west wind. I only launch into a west wind, and my personal limit is 7-mile-an-hour wind. 7 miles an hour is still kind of dicey because of all that terrain around there. You get all kinds of turbulence, and
Do you always take off the shorter?
yes, I have been able to take off from the longer runway, but it's just not as safe. I don't have as much margin to get back down. So, yes, I'm very strict about my weather minimums. I'm really honestly surprised how often I cannot fly because the weather just doesn't allow it. Middle of the day, thermals, buzzards are up because they're riding those thermals. I'm I'm sorry, I'm not getting sick. I'm not going out there. I'm not gonna do it. It's not fun. So that's what I've got.
Okay.
Other questions, sir?
Obviously, you know, we gotta have a public hearing on this, and, you know, I think that gives us some more insight to, think about prior to, the public hearing. My only question is Tracy says she hasn't heard from any neighbors, I know the dog kennel man said you were out of compliance, so I don't know what kind of relationship you and the dog kennel man has, but he's well aware of this, or has he, given any complaints or any?
No, sir, no, I haven't had direct contact with him. That also means I haven't had any confrontational direct contact with him. I've been asking people over the years. 3 years ago, I asked the UPS guy, he lives up the Ducktown Road in towards Lewiston, and he was bringing me parts, because he'd been bringing me parts for years while I built this airplane. So am I being obnoxious about it when I fly this thing? Because he said he saw me flying over the weekend. He said, no. As a matter of fact, I think most people kind of were wishing you were you, or they were you. Guy up the road bought some hay, and I asked him, he said, no, it's no problem. Other folks, they've got that top performance horse farm up the road from me, and they bought the rest of my hay this year. And I asked them, he said, you know what, and I told him what's going on here with this. I said, you know, if I was you, I'd just fly, just go, it's not a problem. Another guy came by to buy that John Deere Gator, and he lives literally up the road, and I asked him, and he said, no, I'm not being a jerk, I'm not coming in at night, I'm not making a lot of noise, I'm just getting in and out. No, nobody has ever said anything bad, ever. And I don't go out seeking people with punishment of those, but they're also not coming to do it either. So that's the environment I've got right now. What else?
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for giving us an in-depth, view prior to, you know, public hearing. Therefore, we understand better, and we'll know, at least have some idea of what we're talking about, and, you know, prior to that particular meeting. So
I've got a few more things I want to show you. If you could move on, and I would like to encourage you, please come out to the farm. Please have a look. Please let me answer all your questions. This is the park's place. This is the kennel. This was taken just Saturdays when I took this picture. Next, please. The property line between me and them is very, very heavily wooded. There's a very thick shrub on there, a vegetative barrier. It goes from about 10 feet right up the road. The road is off to our right over here. I'm looking back from the road into my property as it goes back in, and it's 40, 50 feet wide. It's thick, it's full of privet, it's full of cedars. I can't walk through it. It's really thick. I want it to stay that way. I've grown it up that way. Next, please, sir. This is that trailer across the street. As you see, the meter base has been pulled. It's out. It's just part of the hayfield, part of the grounds. I've got about 400 acres around there. The cows graze right up to the front door on this thing. So I don't even know if it's going to be habitable if the power's been off for 2.5 years. Things get kind of funky at that point. So next, please. Our last look at the site plan, that's all I've got to show. Oh, this one is, I just wanted to point out, the blue lines are Q Public, the black lines are my property line. So all the dimensions and meets and bounds and all that good stuff are on the site plan. So I think I've got everything covered. Next, please, sir. And I do think there could be a reasonable objection by anybody who lives around there, and that is noise. And we're all aware that noise is a hot topic these days. And I think it would be reasonable if someone say this thing's noisy. I thought, hey, when I get this rig cranked up and I'm mowing my hay, that 9-foot mower conditioner is loud. It's just a loud piece of equipment. It's making a lot of noise. On a four-wheel tractor is underpowered for it, so I'm running the tractor flat out, full throttle, full rated horsepower. It didn't come from the factory with a muffler on it. It's loud. When I'm on that rig, I'm wearing earplugs and earmuffs, both, just to keep the noise out. Usually also a dust mask. I go around the field and I cut 8.5 feet off the very edge of, I go right to that hedge line that we saw, which is as close as I can possibly get to the neighbor's house, and I'm getting noise grinding along 3 miles an hour cutting hay. Then I come back around the next pass, 8.5 feet in from there, and then the next pass, and it's going on for about 2 hours. That thing's making a lot of racket. Shut it down, ted the hay. I ted it about 5 times each cutting, and then I rake it, and then I got to bale it slow, and then I have to grab it up into bunches, and then I have to forklift it off. The hay operation makes a lot of noise. When I'm flying the airplane, typically I'll crank it up, do my run up, and be gone in roughly 8 or 9 minutes. So compared to, this is not an excuse, this is not a Band-Aid, this is not to say I'm not making any additional noise, because the plane is making additional noise, but compared to what's already there, it's comparable, and it doesn't last anywhere near as long. I'm typically on the tractor all weekend getting a hay cutting up, making a lot of racket most of the weekend. So that's just to compare. Next, please, sir. And just if anybody can tell me what this means, I would love to know. I was looking in the FARs, in the federal regulations about how they measure how loud a plane is, and you gotta have the microphone just right, and don't stand it, it's gotta be, it's noise. Next, please, sir. We don't do that, I don't do that. Here's my typical flight. Blue dot again is my farm. I get out, I launch north, and I go to the airport, the public airport in Cannon, Georgia, and I get in the pattern. You can see the oval loops, that's called the airport pattern. Do it downwind, about a half mile off the runway, base and final, land in. As you can see, I got up there, made radio contact. Somebody was in the pattern on one of those loops, so I did a little outside loop just to make space for them until they came in from Lake Hartwell. They got landed. We got back in the pattern. And this is mostly what I do. Most when I fly to make sure my landings are good. Practice up there, and then I come home and I slam dunk it. Once again, I don't buzz around. I'm not a little nasty little fly just bothering people around the house. Get away from the farm. Next, please, sir. So I try to be a good neighbor. Like I said, church, never. I don't loiter in the area. I've never had complaints. Stay up at altitude. First of all, it's dumb to be down low, because if the engine quits, you don't know where to go. And second of all, it's noisy if I'm down low. Daylight, light wind, fair weather operations only. Next, please, sir. And then we're not going to go through all these, but there's a bunch of sections of the Code of Federal Regulations. Title 14 is airplanes and spacecraft. Section 61 are my sport pilot licenses, and just to go over real quick, nothing for money. I cannot do anything for money with this airplane. Only one passenger day VFR. I can't go to those towered airports. I can't go anywhere like that. At maximum, those are my references. Next, please. Part 91, minimum safe altitudes. This is generally for airplanes, Cessnas and all those little kind of things. Except when necessary for takeoff and landing. First of all, I have to be high enough to where I can land if there's an emergency, if my engine goes out. That applies to everybody. Pilots are fixated on making sure they got somewhere to glide to at every minute. Over congested areas, not good. Other uncongested areas, 500 feet. You can even go lower. If I had a float plane and I felt like buzzing on Lake Hartwell, in the middle of the lake, I could be this far off the water, as long as I was no closer than 500 feet to any boats, jet skiers, docks, anything like that. These are the federal regulations of how close I can get and how low I can get. I don't ever get anywhere closer than that to anything. I don't even get halfway that close to anything. So I'm requesting a variance for that 901 foot. I've got everything else down, and I really honestly think that I'm running this operation as safely as I can. One thing I noticed when I was doing this research is that 1,000 foot is much more generous than chicken houses, which are 24/7, 365 for 30 years kind of operations. So I wasn't quite understanding where the 1,000 foot came from. I have no idea what the history is. But just as a reference, I'd rather have an airplane fly out once every 2 weeks in a chicken house once every 2 hours next to me. So this is my conditional use permit request.
You might not want to say that last part in front of the Madison County public, just to. Or territory.
But to put things in perspective, I really honestly wish I knew the history of the airport, the private airstrip regulation. I just don't know where I can find that history, or why it's regulated. So that's all my information. Please call, ask slide, please, any questions at this point. That's where we are. And it's just my hayfield. I'm just flying off my hayfield. So if you could possibly go all the way to the very, very end. Some of these are extra reviews, and that's my airplane right there. I'm sitting inside of it, like literally it's this wide, and it's 18 feet long from front to tail. The motor, you don't see the motor on the nose because the motor is behind the wing. It's called a pusher configuration. That's just the way this design is. It's a light sport aircraft. It's sort of kind of got space for a second seat, but the second seat isn't even in it right now because I'm not flying anybody. Built this, I bought the wings and the frame, the fuselage, and it's just metal tube structures. That's the way the kit came. It's designed in about 1980 or so in Minnesota. I put the landing gear on it, I put the motor on it, I researched and bought the motor, all the electronics. I've got a parachute on there, a whole plane parachute, so if I lose the airplane, lose the engine, something structurally goes bad, pop the chute and the entire plane comes down. That's the new thing with planes these days, and it's in there. I paid a lot extra for that, and it's ready to go. 65 horse motor, flies about 60 miles an hour. It's just me. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, so are you allowed to fly? Anybody allowed to fly with you, or you just what?
If I had an airplane that could reasonably take two people, I could take the reason I got this airplane is I wanted to fly down to Munich and fly my brother. But it turns out when I built it too heavy, and I've got a passenger weight max of about 60 pounds, which is a little person like this, and I just can't take anybody else. So my heart's broken about that. The law doesn't really want it, but,
Anyway, thank you, Mr. Smith.
sir, thank
We
you.
appreciate your presentation, so therefore we know more about what we're gonna be listening to.
I'll take that one slide out, for sure. Yeah. I will take that piece of that one slide out.
Coming from the emergency services profession, I know pre-planning is a big deal. If you haven't met with the local fire department, whoever covers that area up there, and invited them out to see what you got on site, for what ifs, I would suggest you do that.
That is an excellent idea, and I have not done that, and I will do that. Many years ago, I was with the department for a year or two, but I haven't had any
If they
contact.
get a call out there, they don't know why.
That's a good idea. That's an excellent idea. Thank you. Thank you all for letting me take your time.
Thank you, sir. Administration, moving on to number 3.
Okay, next up is Randy Moss, and he is requesting to rezone his 6.47 acre property from A2 to AR to bring the lawfully non-conforming property into compliance with current zoning regulations and to allow an existing home to remain on the property as accessory dwelling unit. Property is located at 1006 Winds Lake Road in Comer on map 80, parcel 62A in District 4. And what this is about is Randy Moss had a father, elderly father, that needed to live close to him. And at the time, there was no way that we could permit 2 homes on a tract of land, so he applied for a medical hardship. And that was in October of 1999. That's how it's been ongoing. A medical hardship has to be renewed each year from a letter from the doctor stating that the need is still there. So that's been trucking since October of 99. Well, back in December, I believe it was, his dad passed away, and his stepmom is still living in the home, and she would like to stay there, but she's not in a medical need type situation. So Randy is wanting her to continue living there. And currently, they're in the A2 zone, and in order to have 2 homes in there, you would have to have a minimum of 10 acres, and this is only 6.47. So by rezoning this to AR, not only will it put it in its proper zone, because it's just a minimum of 2 acres there, that would be the next step down. It would do that, and it would also allow the second home to remain there as an ADU, accessory dwelling unit.
Any questions, Mr. Tracy, on that one?
And the ADU square footage is smaller than the primary residence?
Yes.
Additional questions? Okay, not. Moving on to 4.
Okay, next up, Jerry and Amy McEachin. They are requesting a variance to allow a roof cupola to be erected on an event hall that will exceed the maximum building height requirement of 35 feet by approximately 6 to 8 feet. Property is located at 0 Highway 29 South in Danielsville on map 54, parcel 33 in District 2. And I know you guys will remember back in June of last year, he was approved to have an event hall on the property. It's just right down the road
Right.
at the bridge here.
Oh.
And, in section 8.4.2, it states the maximum building height is 35 feet. And if anything is over that, you have to ask for a variance. So, what the cupola is, he had a diagram, I think I put it in the packet, but it's just like a flying pig and it has a weather vane in it. And he's just wanting it for aesthetic purposes.
That'll
Kind
be
of
on
goes,
top of the cupola. The
yeah.
cupola will look like the base of a church steeple. Instead of having the steeple, it'll have a flying pig.
Yeah.
A flying pig on it, and if it was just the flying pig, there wouldn't be an issue, but that additional build they're wanting to do on the roof would be tagged in and structural, not part of the original, plan, and so we're trying to do it by the book since it is conditional use. The event hall, making sure all the Ts are dotted and the Is are crossed.
So in other words, it's gonna be what, about 42 foot high then?
42, and then that little pig flying on top of it.
So the height requirement is 35 feet.
Right.
And we have a couple of businesses or something that exceed that, right?
For a building.
Yeah.
Zone.
We had somebody coming here, they would, that park, and they would
Right.
request
Yeah,
to build.
they wanted to go above the 75 foot for the industrial. And they wanted to go up and above that, and they had to come in and get a variance to be
Right.
able to fit in that additional level.
So there's a difference between that was 75 feet, this is 35?
Yes, sir. Because that one was in a industrial zone
Yeah.
for the cooling towers.
Well, anyway, right.
So I think that's for a plane or something, right?
No,
Why do we have a cutoff?
Why do we have a height requirement?
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
We
Right.
adopted International Property Maintenance Code. This is
think I asked
part of
that
the
last
code that got double put in there. Some
So
counties,
it's not
this is
for-
just how we go past the adoption in Madison County.
Oh.
So, if you were to build a 2-story, I think that takes you, top of my head, it takes you about 10 more feet to about 45 for the structure, but it's a 1-story structure. And so it's as high as a 1-story can be before it's declared a 2-story structure, and then you get into the tax value, property valuation, all the other plethora of money issues.
Oh, so it's not a safety airplane?
It's
Okay.
a taxing issue.
Any further questions on that one? Number 5.
Okay, next up, Dennis Flint, applicant for his brother David Flint, is requesting to rezone a 3.99 acre portion of his 19.61 acre property from A2 to AR to allow the tract to be split off for a home site for his brother. The property is located at 230 Allen Road in Danielsville on map 11, parcel 110 in District 1. And what this is it was a big, large tract of family land. Now, it has had numerous splits, but not within the last 5 years. So currently, David owns the property, and he's wanting to sell Dennis the 3.99 acres so that he can build a house. They just want to live next to each other. It's just all family around there. Now, currently, there are 2 easements, and so this will be the 3rd easement, but it's for his use only. And we did go over, you cannot stack easements, so that's not going to be an issue. And that's it in a nutshell. He just wants to live next to his brother, build a house.
Okay, any questions on this one?
On the easement part, there ain't no restriction on how many easements you can have on one property?
as long as you put in that
They have-
30-foot easement, and then part of that new driveway ordinance that Christina was working on, not only with the culvert pipes that have to go in place, how many can access off of an easement, which is 4 at this point in time, before it becomes a road or anything like that, or we require paving. But it's, in all honesty, it's one of those loopholes we're trying to work through, to where, say, if you've got 2,000 foot of frontage, instead of forming flagstaff lots, you put 30 foot here and 30 foot there, you can have easements crisscrossing everywhere. It's a little bit of a hassle that we're trying to address.
And how long this easement is, how long the driveway is?
It's under the 1,500
Yeah,
feet.
we did go over that,
Multiple.
and he understands they have to be at least 500 feet from the other easements, but I think this isn't gonna be an issue at all. It's gonna be without that.
Any questions? All right, number 6.
Okay, Deborah Moss, she is requesting to rezone a 3-acre portion of her property from A2 to AR to allow it to be split off for a home site for her daughter. Property is located at 745 Dove Drake Road in Royston on map 89, parcel 12 in District 4. Now, if you'll remember, she actually come before the board and was approved by you guys in December of last year and by the Board of Commissioners in January. This was a 2-step process. If you'll recall, she had I think it was 18 acres of land, and it was zoned A1. So she was non-conforming. So the end goal all the time was to get the 3-acre cut out. But since it was non-conforming, we had to first bring it into conformity. So that's why she was rezoned from A1 to A2. So once that was approved, she can now do what she set out to do, and that would be just to rezone that portion to AR and to be able to split off for her daughter. And there will be 1 new driveway. There will be no shared drive. And it's just finishing up the process of that 2-step rezone.
Have all the front.
Questions?
And that home has been delivered, it is there, it is sitting on, will be the lot.
And she was allowed to do that because
I just
at
drove by
that
there on the
time,
way in.
yeah, at that time, it could be an ADU because she had over 10 acres. She was in an A2 zone, and that's the requirement for an ADU, so.
Maybe it's there in the morning.
Number 7.
Okay. Juan Zacharias, applicant for his wife Norma Garcia, is requesting to rezone her 5.11 acre property from A2 to AR to bring the lawfully non-conforming property into compliance with current zoning regulations and to allow a second home to be built on the property for her son as accessory dwelling unit. The property is located at 6791 Highway 29 South in Hull on map 30, parcel 143-0103, and it's in District 3. And if you'll recall, this was actually up for a vote on December the 20th of last year, and he was the gentleman that did not show. When I reached out to him, you know, that's an automatic withdrawal, and you can't reapply for 6 months per our ordinance. I reached out to him that next day and asked him why wasn't he there. Come to find out, his father had passed away. And they were right in the middle of all that when that meeting, and he just forgot. And so I took it to Christopher and explained the situation, and he took it to Todd, our Chairman Higdon, and with his approval, he waived the 6-month waiting period. So, and as I was saying, it's only 5.11 acres, currently A2, so it's not conforming. The next step down would be AR. And in an AR, you can have 2 homes on the property as long as you have 4 acres. So that would accommodate the second home. They are not planning to split it out. They want to keep it whole. And I guess it's not going to be financed or what have you, but they want to keep it whole. And it's just for their son, and
You said it's gonna be accessory.
yes, it'll be accessory dwelling unit.
So, we're going back to legal, they know it's gonna be smaller than the,
Yes, and the property owner has to reside on the property.
no, I said they know it's gotta be smaller than the.
Right, yeah, I was just saying in the other requirements, the property owner has to live there.
Oh,
I may have missed it. Is this a hardship situation or medical, what, nothing, just
Just wants to
straight up?
live right there with his parents.
so do they have to bring you in a plan or something showing that the dwelling is smaller than others?
No, I mean, we don't carry it that far, but,
Oh, so it's just going by their word.
I mean, we check it when they do the building permit. We verify the square footage, but.
All right. Item 3.
Okay, next, yes, paper turn. Discuss amending the zoning ordinance to delete section 11.1.4, administrative approval with no substitution in its place. And, Mr. Pruitt had sent an email stating that House Bill 1405 defines certain kinds of zoning decisions delegated to persons or bodies other than the VOC, and requires the zoning ordinance to be amended by July 1st. So the section, through all our ordinance, there was only one section that we were going to have to delete, and it was the administrative variance. And it won't interfere with variances that we do now. They can go on as is, but just the administrative variance would have to be deleted.
Christopher and I talked about it, that, yeah, this new law, is, I guess it's aimed at having some more oversight over administrative things that don't go to public bodies. So the only thing you've got in your zoning ordinance that it would apply to is this administrative approval of variances. If you want to keep it, we've got to add in all of these complicated procedures that the bill requires, or we can just do away with it, which you tell me you rarely, if ever, used it anyway. And it just means these variances will now go through the normal variance process, just like all the others.
We just had more folks show up at our public meeting, but it also shows the public that we want to be transparent with them across the board if we were to put all the procedures in place and things like that. And the reason I want to do away with it is I personally felt it would just make the public question, like, what are they really, trying to get away with all this policy, and just to do away with it is simple and easy, and everybody gets treated equally.
What was that bill? What was the name of the bill?
1405.
It's House Bill 1405, actually passed last year with an effective date, so in the 22 General Assembly, but with an effective date of July 1 this year.
Okay. Anything else we need to be brought to our attention tonight? I want to thank the staff for the, I got the email about doing with all the paper. I can understand that. The only thing that concerned me was, hey, what if all of us need to look at the same thing at one time?
Yeah.
Are they gonna buy us computers, or we need to bring it home from home, or
I
what do we
actually
need to do?
I actually asked that question, I didn't get a full answer to it, for like a fire tablet or something like that, for the board members, and then that way, if there was ever a connection problem, we could also upload, or like the PowerPoint, if we had it come in, rather than having to use all that link, I forget the other system we used to transmit to y'all, the big packages like that.
Yeah.
Y'all came in, we could just hook it up, download it straight to the tablet.
Well, I think this is sufficient, because I came in and I talked to Tracy about saying, we got those things when we utilize them.
Yeah.
So, I think this will suffice and we'll save the county money cause that's a lot of paper. I agree.
And
Last year, with the moratorium and the rezones prior to it, what we put out of the office was 10 cases of paper just for planning and zoning. And paper went up in a big way.
and the copier, we get charged per page.
Yeah, we get charged per page that we copy, because we're the only department that still leases a printer.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, you got 2 minutes.
It'll take about that long. Just one, thank you for y'all's work. These are just 2 items for thought. One of which I've specifically had a lot of conversation with Christopher about. That's the unintended consequences of the moratoriums that we have in place. I actually expected Mr. Curtis Whitson to be here tonight. He's one of my district folks. I guess he's not even, anyway. One of the folks has called me about this unintended consequences. So it's just putting your thought process, you have opportunity to, and working with Chris, what might be some appropriate mechanisms that we could put in place to help us help folks with those unintended consequences as we work towards where we want to be with ordinance. The other thing, I'm sure y'all are aware the comprehensive plan has been submitted to the RDC for their approval. That does not mean it's finished. We are the steering committee, and thank y'all for working on the steering committee. That part of it, I guess you've been retired, I guess, and there are no more official public hearings scheduled, but we still have the opportunity, if there's some parts of it that we feel like are inadequate or don't address something right, whatever, we have the opportunity to still make some changes to it. Does not mean to say that we're going to be doing that out of the public's view. There still will be opportunity for anybody to comment. It just, at this point, we don't plan on any more structured public hearings for it. At the commissioners meeting last night, one thing that came to my mind, and there are a few things on my mind that I feel like that need to be some addressing in it, but one of the things that became obvious is, to me, there's not a clear, particularly on the land use map and then in the definition, commercial use and industrial gets kind of muddled. And we might want to take a look at how we can clearly define one or the other of the situation with the auto parts salvage place last night. Brought that to me more clearly in view. That type of business now requires an industrial zone. It is in an area that is slated for business. It is operating happily there. But that line, again, is sort of muddled. And I think it's sort of represented that way with y'all were a split decision, we were a split decision. And there's some ways to get around that, but in definition, I think we need to take, or I would like for y'all to think about a clear definition of commercial, industrial, maybe thinking of multiple definitions of multiple levels of each. And if there are going to be specific areas that we want industry only, then that needs to be a clear defining line on the land use map, so we got to, well, this is sort of suitable for commercial and industrial. I think you probably need to be one or the other. Anyway, that's just a thought for y'all as y'all go about your work to think about it. That might, because I'm all about making things really easy. To me, when a request comes to y'all, I would love this comprehensive plan, the work we've done, to be so clear that the answer's already known up front. And that is one that we hadn't got there yet. So anyway, just
If y'all do draft any ideas or come something up, email me and Tracy, and we'll make sure it's all legal, you know, with Mike, because he doesn't make enough. And we'll try and see what the group puts together, especially with the comprehensive plan coming up. Or if y'all feel there's something that you would like to input into it outside of your commissioner, I'd be happy.
I know on that stretch right there, anyway, it'd be hard to make it industrial when you got businesses not far from it. So that'd be tricky setting industrial and business that close together, because
And the old land use map had it stated as either, business, commercial, or industrial, so that shows you how long it was ago, we still had commercial.
So, the new one, I mean, you're almost finalized, right there. You're not defining industrial and commercial?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's there, it is defined separate, but to me, there's not a clear enough, separation that when somebody comes to Tracy and makes a request, that she can pretty well say, yeah, I can make this request if I want to, but here's the line, if we say commercial here, that's right here. I mean, it's not.
Kind of like a pizza, you cut the pizza, you lift it up, some of the cheese, and the pepperoni falls off onto the next one, you drink some of it off.
She has something to be able to filter it before it comes to us.
You know, I went down there, that other, business right down the street is recycling business. I just read their sign the other day. They're recycling.
Okay, the submission to the RDC, what that does, they have, in order for the county to be a qualified, that's right, we're qualified government anyway. The RDC has to check off that the comprehensive plan package we put together meets all their requirements. That's where we are now.
It's not that they agree with everything that's in it, but it meets their requirements. Not that it's, they approve everything that's in it.
It'll be up to the commissioners to finally decide we adopt this.
Yes.
Now, one last question about that. Can we still go in and put comments in the,
Actually, well,
For which one?
or do you know?
now they took the comments off of the county website, county page.
For which one?
For the comp plan.
For the comp plan, yeah, they took it down.
So if you have any suggestions, bring the commissioners, Chris, and
Cause I can put it together and shotgun it out there, to them. I mean, to everybody, you too. I think you will.
Yeah, I mean, but it's been
Training.
submitted to ours.
Everybody got an email about the training, put it on your calendar. I mean, I know it's a ways out, in one hand, another hand, it's here.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
I have a question about since we're talking about paper, I have a big bag of these plans that we have. I need to get rid of. Can I bring them to you, please?
It's a string recycle.
But we haven't had the dates yet.
Right.
There's county shredding events.
Usually in March or April.
Just hang on to it for more.
I've been hanging on.
Just hang
You
on.
just bring the whole thing in that shredder truck will just take care of it, right on the spot.
We'll let you know, when it comes for everybody, if y'all have what you need. As soon as we know, we'll broadcast the email out.
And you should get an email anyway, 'cause she sends it out to everyone and they're on the everyone list.
Oh, okay.
you can bring your personal stuff, needs to be shredded for that too.
Yeah.
You got old files, whatever.
You don't have to worry about having staples in it.
Paper clips, big clips, they don't care. The machine eats it.
That's nice.
Okay. I got a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Approved?
Yes.
While you're here, health insurance.
No,
So, looks like.
I mean, if y'all don't want them, I can
I guess
give
they're not
them
attached
to
to the birth, but
I know,
somebody
you just
come out and
milk it up.
So, for this bid process and this
Thank you, guys.
contract,
We are.
We're on.
I get it, nobody, they're trying to do it. They're trying to do it, I don't know why.
Just put the names.
No, I mean, process.
Oh, I got you. I was like,
Nobody in the county, Dan is trying to do this himself, I offer, but what I do tell, I make sure everybody else, if you can put together, I need to know, when you call 2 or 3 places, they'll chop it out. Just give me that information, write it down.
The list has there's 4 boat gates.
You see the company?
60 12-foot panels, and each of those individuals are put together pins. So there were,
You was talking to me, you was.
Yeah, but I don't even have, nobody's giving me anything that's quiet.
it's in the video. Everybody just, this is what you get.
But I haven't seen that.
Okay.
We had a Wednesday morning, right?
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff in there.
If I don't see it, I'll get Laura and send that to you.
Thank you.
You ain't gonna make anybody happy anyway. Whole lot.
Yeah, I know it's not that complicated, but nobody does. And Dan's the symbol without, so.
I know she said.
So, did you want this?
Okay, well, he included something that's got,
yes,
got like,
I
you
can
know,
say-
galvanized, and sort of detail, but is that what you're talking about? But there's quantities on that.
That's the specific.
What each panel is
Yeah.
gonna be for this. and then
Which,
how
that's
many-
great, we need that too, but before we get there, I need to know what you want.
Yeah.
Quite a few. You're doing well.
I'm not really yeah, but hey, I can walk without
I'm good.
crazy
I'm good. I
leap.
was gonna say something real nice about that water and stuff. I decided to keep on my shit.
Yeah.
But I will tell you,
It wasn't terrible.
the water,
Good to see you.
72, when they talk about the water, what do they call it?
Recharge.
No, recharge area. Okay. Talk about the good point about Gwinnett County, and those counties,
Can I do something
all the
for you?
recharge areas, they got, they just go right over them.
I'm not gonna go there.
One thing different from Madison County.
There's no sense making 2 trips.
Those places, pull out the river, lakes, whatever, we can't afford to do that. So to me, that is one reason that, just a little recharge area.
I think the misunderstanding there is just because that area is where industrial, that type of development is slated for. That doesn't mean that because of that recharge area. In fact, to me, the fact is on that map tells us that although that type of development come that way, when we get here, here's a recharge area.
But rather than stand the risk of somebody ignoring that,
I'm offering to help.
why not just say,
Oh, I
this little area here, I mean,
really
it's not that big. If you can't,
so much.
just don't mess with it. I mean, to me,
Christopher went.
you know, rather than,
Video off.
you don't know who's gonna be thinking.
Coming out, and I'll give you a
No,
buzz
but
beforehand. See it.
the difference between Madison County and the rest of those folks is, now, if we could go down there and pull out the Brown River, clean that water out, we'll be okay, we can't afford that.
That's going to end up having to happen.